all, before we start, I would like to point out the exit signs. If you would look to where the exit signs are, we're a really packed house, and God willing, I hope we don't have to get out in a hurry. But anyway, just know where the exit signs are. Welcome to the Mooers alumni. I think probably most of the 200 who are at dinner are here tonight. That's great to see. We'd like to welcome Mr. Jack Dragoon, town supervisor, and the town board. Also, I believe Mrs. Addie Schills is here, and I don't know if there's anyone else, any other dignitary in the audience, but welcome to our play. At the end of the play tonight, we will be having a special presentation of the Swinging Sisters, a group of ladies from St. Anne's, and you will really enjoy this. So it's directly following the play, and then following the Sister Act is an ice cream social we'll be serving in the hallways. Thank you to the children and to the young adults up here who gave up their seats for the older people. We really appreciate it. It's really important that we keep pretty quiet here tonight and not have a lot of chattering among yourselves or a lot of running in and out, because we have a lot of information that's being processed and it's hard to hear when there's a lot of movement in and out of the building. 200 years ago, on March 20th, 1804, by an act of legislature, we became a township, and that is what we're celebrating this summer. Our pioneers came from Vermont, Massachusetts, and Connecticut, and the first settler was Joshua Bosworth in 1796. Then came the Perrys, the Knapps, the Southwicks, Sheddons, Churchills, and Fitches. I'm not going to mention them all, so if I left out your family, there is no insult intended. And I am sure you are going to notice that we aren't going to mention every bit of Moore's history, because if we did, it would take over 200 years to do it. The town was named for Major General Benjamin Mooers, born in 1758. He was a veteran of the Revolutionary War and fought, and during the War of 1812, he commanded the militia and resisted enemy advance at Culver's Hill at the Battle of Plattsburgh. He was also the first sheriff of Clinton County, county treasurer for over 40 years, and a state senator. He explored the land in what was then known as the Nova Scotia Refugee Tract, and it included most of what later became the Mooers Township. He bought up land until he owned over 49,000 acres, for which he paid 7 cents an acre. Just about all of our first settlers bought land from Benjamin Mooers or Pliny Moore. I think old Ben would have been pleased with his namesake. Like him, we all have to wear half a dozen hats to get the work done, the legacy that comes from living in a small community like Mooers. We're about 1,600 families here, and the population is around 3,400, give or take. Our ancestors were of the Methodist, Episcopal, and Roman Catholic persuasions. And then there is another kind of church too, one that puzzles historians who don't know us very well. We also had a Presbyterial church, but more about that later. The most important thing is that those first settlers all had big families, 9, 10 or more children. In Genesis are quite a few passages dealing with the begats of Methuselah and so on. They were busy populating the world, and they did a good job of it, just like our ancestors populated Moors. That's part of why we call this play Doubling Over. There are other reasons too for the title, and you will find out soon. We decided to set the play in an old-style general store. When you come to our town now, you can't miss Manette's Furniture Store. This is known locally as the Knapp Block, and in this location were several store businesses through the years. Those old stores were places where you stayed in touch with neighbors, a kind of pulse of the town, where you exchanged gossip and discussed the news of the day. The play opens in 1826 with a young Abel Knapp as the storekeeper, who is soon to be married to the love of his life, Miss Maria Southwood. Playing checkers with Joshua Bosworth is Jabez Fitch, master architect, one of those men who built new worlds with vision and energy. The descendants of these people were important to the future of Mooers. Written histories of our town tell us something about what our ancestors did, but they don't give us much detail about what they were like. I suspect they weren't much different from us. Look around the room right now. What you see are the faces of our ancestors. Through us, they rise again. Now, if our stagehands will be so kind as to give us some stage lights, we'll let the play begin.
Good morning.
Good morning.
4 dozen this time, Abel. The hens are laying well this spring, and not a cracked egg in the box.
You have the best eggs, Mrs. Bosworth. I'm glad to buy them from you. By the way, the last shipment had a number of fine hats in it. And I know you were looking for one.
Well, yes, thank you.
Women, put a hat on them, they think they're heifers all over again. Sally, you won't get 1 cent penny from me to buy any of the judges. I'm buying me some horse landing, and I'll put it where it'll do me some good.
I have my own egg money, thank you. I'll trim it with a bit of ribbon and blue feathers, and it will go to my Sunday dress. And it will be for the weather. I mean, a shawl, too. And what do you think? Is this hat for me?
You will be like a picture, Mrs. Bosworth. It looks becoming. Indeed.
Abel's becoming a fine judge at hats, if you put a coin in his purse. Sally, it looks like a sail in the wind, and with the wind from you from port to starboard, nobody in the stern of you will see a bit of the lighting at all. You don't have to harness the ox with all that ribbon.
Mr. Bosworth, seems that you have more interest in hats than you do this game.
You, Mr. Fitch, just lost your king.
Oh,
Is it true? Abel's getting hitched and saddled to that Southwood woman? Why, you think she eat lemons and kerosene when you meet her on the street?
Mr. Bosworth, you're so unkind. Miss Maria Southwick is a fine young lady. Her father is deacon of the Presbyterian Church, and she has a fine record.
Maria, this is quite a pleasant surprise. Perhaps I can offer you a cool drink?
Oh, yes, thank you, darling.
I shall be glad to do your basket myself. You have the list.
Abel, you're looking well today.
Thank you.
Good day to you, Mr. and Mrs. Bosworth. Mr. Fitch, so nice to see you.
How do you do?
It's ever so hot this time of year, do you not agree?
It is, Miss Southwick. The leaves are out real early, and the ground is ready for the plow, I'm told.
Good day to you, Miss Southwick. You must be ever so busy with the wedding in August. Indeed. Abel and I are ever so exhausted by all the preparations, aren't we, darling?
Certainly.
Oh, I know all about them Presbyterian. Thin in the lips, big in the hips. Why, starting 9 months from the wedding, there'll be little Presbyterian gnats cluttering up this place. Why, you can't think of a Presbyterian or a Catholic either hasn't had a brood of 10, 12, or 15 to beat before he knew what happened to him.
Joshua, mind yourself, please.
Congregation, the salt of the earth. Back in Oct 7, we had a congregational church, pure and simple. Deacons who knew how to preach, by God. Now what? Last February, we went and got hooked up with them there Champlain Presbyterians. What we got. Presbycation is what we are now. Neither fish nor fowl or good red herring.
It sounds good to me. It's accommodation. They're running out of preachers, you know, and the population is still growing.
Cucumbers for us. Hot peppers for Abe.
Oh, yes, Abel. A buggy ride in the cool of the evening would be most agreeable. But right now, I haven't but a moment, you know, we can stay for just a minute. The wedding dress, you know, I have a fitting today.
I am at your service.
people. Mustn't.
Southwick is in able hands. Speaking of service, I hear you have a cow season. My bull Samson is in fine mettle these days.
Mr. Toggle, not in front of the lady.
It's propagation, my friend. Propagation that the good Lord shall provide. It's right in the Bible. It all began with the begotten. Maybe we should call it a propagational church.
Mr. Bodger, that is almost sacrilegious. But isn't it true, Abel? The joining of the two religions, working the same ground with the same spirit. So much has happened since the turn of the century. What opportunity to think of all the men, the ones lucky enough to be here to help us build the foundation of a new nation. Houses, churches, roads, and businesses in the wilderness. Every man with a big family. We are catching up to the rest of the world, Abel.
You know, I suppose one day we'll go down in history as the founders of Mooers.
Oh, all anybody needs is food, a table to eat off, and a fine fat wife to cook it. I don't need to be in history.
Well, that's men for you. Here we are, your fat wives, up at 4 every morning, working like servants and slaves and raising your big families. All the men with the businesses and the roads and the churches. Of course, never a good word for the women.
See what I put up with all these years? If that's honey the comb, she's polluted with it. I can't take her anywhere.
Mrs. Bosworth, you surely should have said something. Men are the poorer half of the equation, and without you ladies, we would be in wilderness still.
Let it not be forgotten that without the women, there'd be a lot of fine founding fathers you'd be. It's the women that keep you from the lust and the gaming and the rum.
Oh yes, you make our burdens gladly taken on. Men are sitting backsliders without their good wives.
Oh, the poor fool is softening of his brain.
Propagated in the following years. The money tracts that served for roads in 1826 were a hindrance to trade and development, but the coming of the Northern Railroad changed all of that. In the fall of 1852 was the maiden run of the D&H rail line, creating an easy transportation corridor from Plattsburgh to Montreal, with one of its stops in Mooers Junction. We found ourselves on a better place on the map, so to speak. Every whistle of the D&H as it thundered through the village was a harbinger of good economic news. Each train came to have its own persona, and the townspeople knew them all by their crews and their sounds. Those old steam engines had a feature about them that could be seen as a kind of metaphor for the times. The 19th century revivalist preacher, Reverend Bushrod Shedden Taylor, noted this in one of his sermons. He said, every great throbbing steam engine needs a heavy balance wheel to make the machinery run steady, even, and smooth. So the Lord put us into hard places where we need grace to keep us steady. Well, it must be that Mooers is full of grace because we sure had plenty of hard places to go through. On April 12th, 1861, President Lincoln called for 75,000 volunteers. 13,000 of those were to be from New York State. In Mooers, on May 15th of that year, 15 signed up. The first of 251 men from Mooers who fought to preserve the Union in the Civil War. Let's go now to May 15, 1861, to see how it might have been that day when war fever was high. Amelia, the daughter of Abel Knapp, and now the young wife of Dr. Charles Bidwell, watches good young men sign up, leaving families and community bereft. Emmett Fitch is the great-grandson of the Jabez Fitch you met in the last scene.
They will be treated well.
And if there are not enough volunteers, then conscription.
I hope it won't come to that. And I don't sign up boys under 18 like some do. He was pretty determined, Amelia. I know quite a few more are planning to, but they have to get their affairs in order. There's all the spring work to get started on the farms, so the wives and children can cope for a while. It's not a thing I take lightly, and I don't encourage men who do this on a lark or on the spur of the moment.
I spoke to Harriet, your mother, the other day after church. Well, I guess you already know how she feels.
Well, yes, her feelings about the war are amply clear.
She asks how farm boys and clerks can take on going to war. They're totally unprepared amateurs. Our fathers, our brothers, our sons, they'll be torn to pieces, left on an open battlefield as food for crows. I must say I agree with your mother. We need our boys here, taking care of their families, not dying thousands of miles away. Personally, I don't for a minute believe what the South is saying. It's all a political game that can be solved in Washington if you men use a modicum of common sense and diplomacy.
Oh, it's much more than a game. Right now, our capital in Washington, Mrs. Bidwell, is surrounded by those who would destroy it. My dear mother, and a lot of others too, they don't understand yet how deadly earnest we are about this. Jefferson Davis means every word he says about secession. How can we ignore Fort Sumter? How can we ignore headlines blaring to the world in Charleston that the Union is dissolved. The time of indecision is over. I was in Union Square just April 20th. I'll never forget what one speaker said. He asked us to rally around the Star-Spangled Banner so long as a single stripe can be discovered or a single star shall shimmer from the surrounding darkness. And you, Abel, the men who signed up today are eager to fight for their country. Surely, you don't think this is just another political game?
Perhaps not, but I am a practical man. We've all heard the stories about men starving in their camps, no uniform, no tent. Some men don't even have decent weapons. How can they fight a war like that? Big parades may be thrilling to the rabble in New York City, but what kind of people are these? Immigrants who don't have the faintest idea what a war is all about? Opportunists looking to score points in a war? People that are so poor, soldiers' wages would be good. My God, just look at some of those generals that Lincoln was appointing. This is disgraceful.
And to what generals are you referring?
Well, that Walrus Ben Butler of Massachusetts and Dan Sickles right here in New York State. Lincoln is shooting our own army in the foot by such political appointments.
Personally, I am sorry to see that you are using your popularity and talents, Evan, to organize militia. I see how they are doing that, putting community leaders on the bandwagon to attract recruits. To me, it kind of exploits trust, doesn't it? You have always talked about enterprises that we need in wars. The trains have made it all possible for a scale of business that we never dreamed of. We might even attract a factory business one day. What if you are killed? Your life wasted?
And would you have us under the flag of the South? How can you think that way? Slavery goes against everything we stand for. Don't we truly believe that all men are created equal?
There is no one in this room in favor of slavery, I assure you.
And I certainly agree with that.
That is not the real issue. It's not ideals. It's shameful political squabbling. States' rights, federal rights.
Perhaps. I never claimed there were saints in Washington. We must work with human beings who are not perfect, madam.
I've heard Reverend Bradshaw sign as chaplain. The Presbyterian Church will miss him. I noticed that your brother Marcellus hasn't volunteered.
That's because our mother has been badgering him night and day not to. He wants to enlist, and he will, if not now, then later. He is going after a commission like I did, and I think he will get it. The Union needs men like him who know a bit about the railroads. What good is he clerking at our father's store now when he's in a fever to enlist? Oh, pardon me, my friends. I shouldn't have intruded on you. Perhaps it would be best if I found another place to conduct recruitment.
Edit, war is a hard word to swallow, but we do respect your views, even though we are not in agreement. Please do stay. I don't want you to think that we lack patriotism or that we blame you for all this. It's just that it's a monstrosity, a civil war. These are confusing times. I can hardly sleep these nights. I am so distracted about it.
Neither can I. We do what we have to. I think it will be a short war. Two men who signed up today are in for 90 days. I think in a month, with determination, this war will be over. The boys will be back soon. You just wait and see.
I will pray you are right.
Well, I'm done here for today. Do I have your permission to leave things set up for tomorrow?
Of course. Go ahead. We will make sure that nothing is disturbed.
I'm glad you trust me enough to speak your thoughts openly. We all have a right to that. Good day, Abel. Good day. Mrs. Bidwell.
do.
Can't imagine why.
Oh, I know they are good for business and all that, and we can go places so easy now. But I am afraid of the trains.
For heaven's sakes, Amelia, why would a smart young woman like you be afraid of trains?
Because nothing stops them. They're taking away our best young men. They seem to me to take away as much as they give. Now it's the war. Later, that whistle will be calling other tunes. I have a feeling that a lot of those tunes we won't like.
I never thought of you as such a pessimist.
It's just that I like things peaceful and growing. People struggling together to make life better for everyone. I feel a sense of dread for what is to come.
Amelia's sense of dread was well justified. As we all know, that war took a lot more time and a lot more lives than Emmett Fitch or anyone else imagined. Of the 251 who served for Mooers, 80 died, their bones resting anonymously where they fell, or in battlefield burial grounds, or in our own cemeteries. And no, Benjamin Brooks never did come home to see his youngest child. A number of men were casualties, not of battles, but of disease, like M.E. Steele, who succumbed to fever in the Chickahominy Swamps, Virginia. The veterans were scarred forever by what they saw and had to do. And many carried with them the diseases spawned by the conditions of the camps in which they lived during the war. But in the years following the war, Mooers continued to grow and prosper, thanks mainly to the markets open down the tracks, with no end in sight. Emmett survived his years in the Army, where he served with honor, and he did become a prominent businessman in Mooers. Among his successes was serving as vice president of a shirt and overhaul factory. His brother Marcellus also survived, and he was instrumental in defending the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad. He was at Antietam and Bull Run, serving with distinction. Afterwards, he and Emmett formed a highly successful mercantile business in Mooers, making the most of the markets provided by the Rutland Railroad. They both were natural community leaders who served their country and their community well. Cannon's Corners was named for Samuel Cannon, a prosperous merchant whose luck turned for the worse in May of 1877. 2.5 miles west of Cannon's Corners, there was an alarm of fire at Johnson Gore. That year was not the only forest fire to ravage the town of Mooers, but it was the largest. It raged through the woods for a day before it began what was to become a catastrophe for the people of Mooers. A fearful wind sent burning fragments in all directions, starting new fires wherever they landed. All of the houses owned by Samuel Cannon and occupied by several families were burned. The fire then leapt over the road and destroyed the Cannon Woodyard, then the bridge to the north side of the river, and then Cannon's Mills. Samuel's barns containing sleighs, wagons, harnesses, farming machinery, hay, and animals were lost. Then his own house burned with only a little furniture saved. Attempts to save some of what was in Cannon's store by rolling barrels away from the building were futile. The salt pork burned anyway, and the barrels of kerosene exploded, spreading the fire even further. The net loss to Samuel, if you want to put it in terms of money, was $20,000, a fortune at that time, and the insurance covered very little of it. But how can you put a dollar sign to what a fire cost? Gone in the ash-laden winds was a lifetime of struggle and hard labor. Household treasures and memories accumulated through generations, all the familiar things of home, and materials and tools of work, all reduced to smoke, stench, sooty charred remnants. Of course, Samuel Samuel and his wife Electa were not the only ones to suffer loss. In 4 hours, the fire consumed almost everything in its path of 3 miles. William Wallace Wood owned the largest barn in the town of Mooers at the time, and it was totally destroyed. He also lost a steam and water mill, a large shop, a huge inventory of lumber, logs, and shingles, and 5 tenement houses. Some 43 homes were destroyed, a dozen businesses, numerous farm buildings. Many animals suffered and died, though no human lives were lost in this conflagration. There is probably some commonplace explanation why this happened. It may have been a hot spring day with winter dead grasses tindered dry, and there was a fierce wind. It could have been a spark from one of the trains that set it off, but no one will ever know. We humans want some other why, some greater reason and pattern to things like this. But those reasons are hard to find except among those with religious faith. And with faith, the people of Mooers gathered their resources to aid those who had suffered loss and to begin the task of rebuilding. But let's see what our people were like under fire. Horatio, Abel Knapp's son, is running the store. He is an important man in Mooers, a town clerk, town supervisor, and postmaster. His son, named for him, but called Wallace, was 8 years old. He was to go on to become a state senator.
Keep letting down all the roofs you can! This way. Tell Lewis and his crew to load all the kerosene barrels on those wagons and get them away from the buildings! Move them across the river! Now! Much longer! Now, go over home, hitch up the buggy for your mother, then help Grandpa Abel get the horses and the cows out of the barns and into the marsh. Well, hurry! I know. We're all scared, Wally. But right now, I need your help. I need you to be a man and help your mother. Go ahead.
Ratio, the pump at the river. It quit. I can't get any more water down the hose.
That must have been a kerosene barrel. Tell Frank to take a look at the pump. In the meantime, keep all the buckets full. Wet down everything that you can. Did Merritt and the boys get the cattle out of the Bosley barn?
They're doing it right now.
And George?
Last I saw, he got most of the old people and children out of the way across the river. Most everybody else is hauling buckets from their wells and moving piles of dry brush and lumber away from their buildings.
What else can we do? I don't know what else we can do, Isaac. You might as well go. I've wet down everything I can outside here. If the wind doesn't change directions, the fire will be here in 3 or 4 hours. And if that happens, nothing will stop it. We'll save what we can.
Horatio, what are you waiting? Just came from the Boswell place. It's all up in flames.
Sam, get her some smelling salts behind the counter.
Hurry, Sam. Right there at the bottom. What happened to that?
John went back into the house. Hattie thought the youngest boy was still in there. 2 other men went in to help find the boy. Suddenly the fire flared up in the wind. The whole front of the house was on fire. I got there just as they were escaping from the back kitchen window.
He's in there! Oh God, my baby! He's in there!
She went crazy. She broke away from us and tried to get the flames out with her bare hands. If John and I hadn't practically knocked her out, she would have gone right through the flaming doorway. It was awful.
And they didn't find the boy?
He and the girls were up to their grandfather's place.
And the house, is it gone?
Almost all of it, except maybe the chimney and the wall house.
Tell me! Why? Everything we worked for, it's all gone! All of it! Everything! My mother's stuff too! All of it is gone! All we saved was a suit! A stupid suit!
John and the kids are okay, Hattie.
I know! But what will I do? Oh, God!
Pull yourself together, for your family's sake.
You don't understand my life. You don't understand everything all we worked for. All gone. Nothing left. No house, no nothing.
What are you doing here? You were told what to do.
It was done before I got here, so I came back to help.
Oh, well, give Mr. Cannon a dipper of water. Hurry, hurry. Now run and get Dr. Bidwell to come and help us here. I think they both got some pretty bad burns.
Methodist Church.
Sam, why are you here? Why aren't you looking after your own place?
It's gone. Impossible with God. Dudley Sawmill, too. Lamerton's place. Brisbane's. Yort's. Fuller's. And it's still hungry. It's still going up to Willie Wood's place. Burning the lathe in the sawmill. The big barn's down. I have to help them.
No, Sam. Sam, you stay here. There'll be plenty to help with. After. Oh, goodness. I just can't take this all in.
Is Alexa all right?
She went to her sister's place in Chazy.
Really? Where's the doctor?
Charlie's had his hands full tending birds and cups. I grabbed some supplies and got here as soon as I could. Patty, I know what happened. Women and children have been coming from burned homes and farms, and we're taking care of them now. Thank God nobody has died. Come now, let me see if you're all right. Are you hurt? Those are nasty burns. We'll have to keep you covered until Dr. Bidwell can treat your properly. Don't worry, we'll take care of everything. I thought my boy was in there. I couldn't get in. They wouldn't let me in, and then John went in after him, and the fire swallowed up everything. Oh my God! It's all gone! Everybody is safe. I'm going to have Dr. Bidwell give you something to help you rest. That's what you need right now, Hattie. Don't worry, we'll take care of everything. Your dress is ruined. We'll get something. We'll pick something out the store later on. It'll be fun. I guess I'm a charity case now. Nonsense. Patty, why, how many times have you done sewing for me? You made my wedding dress. You're not charity. You're my friend.
Methodist Church is nothing but a pile of bricks and rubble. Reverend Purnell was beside himself when he couldn't save it. And the $250 for the Troy conference, it's all gone. Reverend said he'd have to resign. There's no church to serve.
The wind is still blowing strong. There's burning embers everywhere.
It's coming from the direction of Mooers Forks. I can't get it out of my head. The cows, the pigs, the calves, all trapped in the barn. Poor animals. It was horrible.
This has got to stop somewhere. Maybe the wind will shift.
This is the end, Amelia. This is the end for all of us. Don't think that for 1 second. The rest, we can build together. We'll build it together again. Come now. Let's pray as hard as we have ever in our lives. Dear God, save us from the fires of hell. And please, punish us not according to our sins as we deserve, but save us according to your mercy.
Fire stopped at the Armstrong Mills after destroying a blacksmith shop and house belonging to Thomas Armstrong and occupied by John Winters. It was the largest of the forest fires within town limits, but it was not the last. There was no fire protection in Mooers. In fact, the first Mooers Fire Department didn't come about for another 71 years, in 1948. The townspeople did pull together, did rebuild what was lost. If we fast forward a few years, we see Mooers nearing its peak. The Ogdensburg and Lake Champlain Railroad is hauling ever-increasing tonnage, so that as many as 35 trains pass through every day, carrying local milk, butter, lumber, cattle, farm produce, and coal. The Junction House and later Hotel Ingleside are bustling. In 1918, the Rutland Railroad and the D&H are carrying troops and military equipment to the Great War, as we used to call World War I, including 69 young men. 5 of them died far too young. Others were maimed physically or emotionally. In 1918, there was an unseen passenger on board those trains. She was known in some places as the Spanish Lady. This so-called Spanish flu showed itself all over the world, in big cities, on remote farms, on the battlefields in Europe, and in little towns like Mooers. There had been other epidemics in Mooers: cholera in 1850 and scarlet fever in 1901. This was different. The story of that time is not well told in our region. Let's talk to 2 of our people, backtracking from now to 1928, 10 years after the Great War and the Spanish flu. Time enough for the people to gain some perspective, yet the memories are still fresh. Let me introduce you to Anna Barcombe and Mary Yacht LaValle. Anna is Mary's granddaughter. They have both first-hand memories of that time. I want you to realize that the ladies were very reluctant to talk with us today. Mrs. LaValle, Mrs. Barcombe, if you would be so kind as to join me on stage. Have a seat. Perhaps quite a few of you know about the Great War, but few know about the Spanish flu. We are hoping you might give us some insight tonight, ladies, about how that was here in Mooers.
Thanks for asking us, Carol. Please, call me Anna. I feel like my mother when you use the word Mrs. And you may call me Mary. I would like to set the record straight as to why I recognize you about 100 years ago. I think there's something that Christian culture is constantly understand. 1918 is a long time ago. For you, but for me, it's very unusual to talk about. Talking about it doesn't change things. It doesn't make them better. it doesn't impact one's life. After the war in the school, we just wanted to get on with our lives. We didn't want to limit it, but we just had to keep going. That's all there was to it. I'm not sure that what I have to say is worthwhile.
We are very grateful that you came tonight, ladies. Perhaps if we think about it this way, it may help. All of that history made us who we are, don't you think? Those people who lived, those who died, are all part of the history of the town of Mooers. They were all our friends, and we care about what happened to them very much. Please feel free to just have a discussion among the two of you, and we will listen to everything you have to say with patience and kindness.
Yes, we do care about those people, don't we, Grandma? Well, Charlie Sample was running the store back in 1918. I remember he closed it down for a while back in 1918. Mayor Stewart said there was other towns closing down public places. So Charlie had no choice. If I remember right, they had to wear masks.
That's right. After the did, though, I don't think they got to.
In Mooers, you said the war killed 5 of us. Is that right, Carol?
That's correct.
Grandma and I figured the flu killed maybe 6 times that. Maybe more than 30. Practically every family was sick with it.
Yes, that's right. Not many people had phones. They kept quarantining and very hard to find out who was sick or who had died or how. Peter was my husband, and then there was a small child. Peter had visited sick families, asking about the news and how they were doing. Everyday things were not easy to come by. I would be considered that night and day for the neighbors and for my own grown-up kids in the families. Grandpa got me on the doors, much of his doorsteps and windows. Mostly bread and soup because they were too sick to eat anything else. My Peter and whoever else could just about wore themselves out doing barn chores for farmers.
I remember talking about not enough caskets. Mrs. Parsons, do you know her, Grandma?
Oh, very well. She's the wife of George Parsons, the emperor. Julia told me that year there was a shortage of caskets with so many bodies.
Well, we got one for Mother. George had the grave dug and Father filled it in because he wanted to. We were quarantined, so there was no funeral. There was a memorial service later.
My daughter, Anna's mother, she put her hide with 105 and before it was done, she was too sick to stand up. I heard her people dying at early morning and dead at night. I wanted to go and look after Eva's family, but your uncle, Sam, was sick and nearby. So I went there instead, thinking that Eva didn't need me so long. I was quarantined and I couldn't leave. It's funny, Grandpa and I never got anything. It just doesn't make sense that some got it and some didn't.
One of my cousins, Liam, died in the spring of 1919, in April. He was 16 days old. I remember Uncle Victor talking about Aunt Liza and how she was heartbroken, and it took her well over a year to get over the flu and the grieving. She
still gets upset with Uncle Victor when he climbs up on his high horse about the good old days. She didn't think the good old days were so great.
There were so many Dickies that time. There was Josephine Parsons. She had a food and her baby was still young. There was Fanny and Leonard Brown, that died just short of 2 months old. There was Jenny's baby, Eliza Giro, Helen Trombley's. I saw a home caskets. There was a family of 9 that died in the woods. There was a family of 14 in a house with 2 guest parents and 2 big children. For 2 or 3 days we were out. A lot of things like this happened around here.
You know Dr. Taylor better than me, Grandma. I didn't think he was so smart. In fact, I didn't think he knew anything at all. Stupid little pills didn't help me and they didn't save Mama. I was mad at him. I still am when I think of it.
Now, Anna, don't be so complaining. Don't you know that he died just a few days ago down on the railroad? They found him beside his car. He was a kind-hearted man and a good doctor, but they just didn't know what to do about him. There was a shortage of doctors in Mooers. We were lucky. We had 3. We had 2 Dr. O'Neills. Dr. O'Neill lived on the Pepper Hill Road. His son, Harold, had 62. I remember the doctor's mom coming up to the driveway to take care of poor Sam before he went. We followed the orders religiously, but Dr. Taylor told us he just wasn't going to follow. I remember my Peter saying, Dr. Taylor wore out 4 elbows there.
The other one was James O'Neill. Dr. Jim had a saying. What is it?
Yes, he had a saying. His saying was, there's a sick enemy, and he lived up to that too. He was a kind-hearted man and a good doctor. When the weather was bad, we went out. When the weather was bad, we went out on the influenza calls with a sleigh. There were many nights that we went out and rode in the snow. And I just learned that his horse would be out on the
Yes, I do. He was the Presbyterian minister who started the Mooers Library.
Well, he left in 1918 to become chaplain. My nephew John met me my chance in the barracks near Boston. He told John hundreds were dying in what he called death camps around the Twin Cities and on the ship in the harbor waiting to log trains. There were trainloads of empty caskets coming in and soldiers going out. Troops were dying too in the trenches and finding trains.
I don't think the experts knew where it came from or where it went when it stopped. But I hope they figure out how to prevent it, or at least help those who get it.
Anna, you survived the flu. What do you remember about what it was like?
It was a September afternoon. I forget the date. It was cold, but we hadn't had a frost yet. I went after the cows in the pasture to be milked, and I was fine. But by the time milking chores were done, I was shaking. My bones and joints were being
twisted apart. Oh, especially the legs. The legs were terrible. The headaches, oh, they were even worse. Before long, I could hardly breathe. Nothing was clear to me again until an October morning, maybe 3 weeks later. The sun in the window partly shaded by bright yellow leaves. It was the nightmares I can't get out of my mind, even now. Sometimes I was closed up in a tight box underground and I couldn't make anybody hear me. Oh, there's something in my room. It's not my father, it's not my mother, it's something cold. I could see it out of the corner of my eyes, but I can't see it plainly. She's coming for me too! She's going to take me! Being awake didn't stop the dreams. I fought with them, asleep and awake alike. Sometimes I was smothering in my blankets. Curtains moved in the breeze in a certain way. Or the clothes on the door just seemed to come alive. One day I woke up in the real world. Father was asleep in a chair next to me and his face was gray and old. Something was wrong. Something was missing. I called for Mother, but it came out barely a whisper. I was so tired. I couldn't move my head. But I knew she was there because I could feel the sense of weight. Something was missing. It was a breathing. The sound that was still coming from me. The sound of a person trying to breathe underwater. I fell back to sleep, and when I woke up again, my father was standing there over the bed crying. He looked, I can't find the words, like he was dead inside too, hopeless. He was standing over the bed, crying my mother's name over and over again, Eva, Eva. He was standing there looking at the bed next to me. I turned my head to look. She was very still. Her eyes open. Purple blotches on her face, her bloody froth around her mouth. The next day, I watched out the window as Father carried away in a box in the back of the wagon. I was too tired to cry. All I wanted to do was sleep all the time to escape the pain. And when I was finally feeling well enough, I started to feel the empty place with Mother in bed. Home just wasn't home without Mother. And Christmas, well, we didn't have one. I think it was around New Year's when I had a relapse. Dr. Taylor said I was forbidden to get up again until he gave me the okay. I wanted to go downstairs. I could hear my brothers squabbling and something breaking. My legs hurt really bad. I think I passed out at the head of the stairs and took a few hard bumps on the way down. It seemed to start the whole thing over again, but I got out of it much more quickly this time. You see, with all this sickness, my father was way behind on getting the fall chores done. He still had the animals to tend to and the winter firewood to cut. My brothers were supposed to sit quietly on the bed with me while he was out. Well, that didn't happen. They were 3 and 5 years old. And when they weren't crying for Mother, they were getting into things. They were difficult. I was 10. I was in charge, the oldest. But I couldn't do it. I complained, but Father would get upset with me. He said, I was damn sick and tired of my belly aching. I didn't know just how lucky I was to be alive.
Now, Anna, you were only 10 and sick. If father is going through some kind of hell. That's the only word that I can put to describe it.
He said that, but he meant something else. He just never said it aloud. That he wished that had been me that died, not Mama.
Anna, that's poison, and that's not true. You're grown up now, and you know better. You were sick then, and it was the sickness struck you, and that's why you didn't understand. My mother, Loretta Dodd, died October 21st. Eva died on October 9th in San Valley, November 1st. There were 9 more that died before Christmas, and several others after. Those that have Spanish flu seem to get depressed when they visit. It was like that for a lot of people. It was a dark time for the survivors also, living without their wives, husbands, and never lost their children.
We were thankful when you came, Grandma, all of us. And then Grandpa had a stroke and we had to take care of him. Nothing was ever the same for any of us again. It was the next spring until I visited the site where Mama was buried. Brother Sam was there and great-grandma Yap. My friend Willis Scriber had died. He was only 10. And I had a 7-year-old cousin Alex that died that October too.
It's hard to understand, Anna, how such things are so dimly remembered now.
Well, maybe they'll be remembered better if this happens again.
God help us.
Lady and the trains and Mooers, both are ghosts of the past. The rail station is empty and silent now. Mooers isn't a booming place like it was, but it holds its own. The big trucks mostly take the North Way these days, bypassing the little towns. But we're just as happy to enjoy our quiet rhythms. We could move on to the cities, but we like it where we are. There are still farms to be sure, but a lot fewer people work off the land now. There are a number of prosperous businesses, including Dragoon's Farm Machinery, and there's Bennett's Furniture Store, a familiar presence on the site of the old Knapp store. We have a new fire station in Town Hall that we're proud of, and that's where we solve our problems. Talk to anybody about the ice storm of '98 in Mooers, and you will discover that emotions ran close to the surface about that experience, even though it was a few years ago now. We learned something new, or perhaps it was something very, very old. We're not exactly sure and can't really explain it in words. You would think that right away everybody was alarmed that January 6th of 1998, but it was not so. It was a novelty at first, a day off work and school to relax and wait it out. It was a joke of nature that was temporarily inconvenient, but rather fun too, getting out the candles, the long underwear, lighting up the fireplaces like a winter camp out right at home. But with explosive cracks and crackles, fractured trees toppled on power lines, roofs threatened to collapse under tons of ice. There were fires and accidents and hardships never before experienced in living memory. Farmers heard the pitiful cries of cows desperately needing to be milked and watered. We found ourselves in a jangled, unfamiliar world. Before the ice storm, if you asked anyone in Mooers the definition of happiness, you would have heard about pipe dreams, or there would be a shrug dismissing the question as silly. Just after the ice storm, you would have a different response. Perhaps happiness is simply being warm enough. Perhaps being safe is most important. Nobody would have been vague about it. We You never know what the future holds, what forces in the world will change our lives there. None of us are perfect, but we are all the salt of the earth. What our history has taught us over and over is that we are lost in the dark until we rise to the simple challenge of Scripture. Love your neighbors. There is a poem titled Nice People, written by Ron Potts of Peru, who worked to restore power to the North Country during the ice storm. It expresses what he learned in the experience, and I quote, "We came upon little towns not far from Champlain's shores. These towns were really nice, Scioto, Chazy, and Mooers. An awful storm had wiped them out. No phone, electric, or water. They huddled all in one room, parents, sons, and daughters. We worked all day and then all night to get them on their feet. They loved us all and always smiled and fed us on the streets. These people here are beautiful. They don't push and shove. And no matter how hard times get, all they show is love."
Mary Ellen, what time is that?
Oh, it's about 7 a.m. and I am tired to the bone.
I'm dead at my feet too. Good thing McDonald's brought some more egg McMuffins. Anytime now, another gang working on the lines will be coming in. Wet, hungry, dead tired, ready to drop. So wired, I'm sure they won't stop even if they're dead. I guess you don't know your neighbors in everyday life until something like this happens.
Does anybody remember how many meals we did last night? I lost count. I'm glad so many people helped out, but right now I could really use a nap.
Some fellas worked on the lines for 22 hours without let up. Truth is, there's too much to do. Couldn't do it all, no matter how they push themselves. Hernias, bad backs, and they still don't quit. I saw the gas electric fella today, Jim. He was sick as a dog. Some kind of flu, but he never let up. He's staying in Jack's office over the Dragoons.
Yeah, I saw Jim also. I tried to get him to come over and lay down and talk for a while and rest, but no. He said something about live lines down. He was really afraid somebody was going to get killed.
So far, there's been enough food to feed everybody. We're too tired for this. At least I am. What day is that?
Bolt. Marcella, it's Friday.
Thank you, Rainey.
Well, at least I think it is. Nothing for us to complain about at all. Most of the poor old geezers like us are stuck at home alone, not knowing what in the hell is going on, not knowing what to do, and they can't get out at all. Most of them don't have a generator, they don't have a fireplace, they don't have wood to burn in it. Some of them will get pneumonia for sure if they don't look out.
Well, all I know is I am glad to have something to do. You get no complaining from me.
Granny, isn't it awful that Leonard and Sheila's house burning? What can we do to help them? They lost everything.
They lost everything all right. The fire started about the same time the storm did, just about. The boys in the fire trucks could only do 5 miles an hour on the damn ice. Frustrating as hell. They could see the flames shooting up, but nothing they could do but watch and crawl along the ice.
Edie, the librarian, said the sky was lit up with it. Must have been pretty bad for Leonard and Sheila to hear about it being away like that. Oh, this arthritis is bad. I wish I was home with my lazy boy.
Oh, isn't that just too bad about your lazy boy? That big maple tree falling on the roof? Pretty much smashed everything up in the living room. Not just your stupid lazy boy. There's going to be a lot of fixing up to do when we are done this.
Well, me, I don't do work anymore.
Yeah, we
Somebody
know.
else will have to do it.
Yeah, we know.
Won't be a maple tree standing by spring. Be the end of the maple syrup industry.
Oh, Rodney, you're always predicting doom and gloom. Well, Edie, Barb, boy, are we glad to see you. Are you coming to take over?
No, we're here for a while.
Where in the world have you two been?
Walking in Wonderland.
Yesterday was our lucky day.
Oh yeah? Why's that?
Cellar flooded. I don't have to melt the ice to flush the toilet. God provided. Yes, he did.
Congratulations.
No, the ice does make better drinking.
Oh my. Look at it outside. It's so pretty. It's all shivery and artistic. It's really beautiful.
Holy cow! How did you even get here today? There's live lines down all over the place. Hardly anybody dares to get out.
Well, I hitched a ride on his canoe with Georgie. He came over to my house to cut down that big maple tree. And I convinced him to cut a road to Bard's. But I had a heck of a time convincing her to come here with me. Her house is as cold as a Moor.
Georgie, anyway. You putting out for the power, guys?
Oh, hey, don't knock it. They're real live wires. Some of the most popular guys in Mooers, too.
I could have gone over to Bobby's. God, I haven't had that in a week. I can hardly stand myself, say nothing of anybody else. How you doing, old buddy?
I still say, it's really beautiful out there. I just like looking at all the sparkling.
Yeah, I'll take a nice muddy day in April anytime.
How about an instant muffin and coffee?
Honey, I got something a lot better to talk
Whatever gets you warm, Barb.
Barb, I know you've got a damn generator. How come you don't have any heat in your place?
I thought Hobie's cows needed it more than me. Me and a ghost are tough. And it's easier to stand a little chilly than it is to listen to the cows black all night. It's enough to wake the dead.
I hear that Bob Lamberton's farm that he lost a lot of cows.
Yeah, they did. Heard the department boys got out the barcodes too. Took them 4.5 hours to get 4 miles. That's how bad the roads. One of the department boys was in here yesterday in that crowd in the afternoon, and he told me. They was tears in his eyes, just talking about it. You got 75 to 80 cows, bellering, bursting with milk, and you're a farmer taking care of them, and there's nothing you can do. Just nothing. No water for them either. Listening to those cows suffer like that, heartbreaking. Anyhow, the boys got the generator going. They'll have to dump the milk until the road is over.
You hear what Wayne said when he came in last night?
No, I didn't. I was busy. But I heard something about some crooks.
That's what they are too, going around on skidoos, stealing generators and selling them for big money. I hope they get caught, the stinking fiends.
You should take your damn generator and chain it to the porch.
Right.
And the store is hiking the prices up on the generators. They got it wrong in the Bible when they said hell was hot. Gotta be an ice storm. People who take advantage of a bad situation, human nature, ain't it grand?
Oh, Rodney, you old busspot. And you know, that's not true and you know it. Look at those kids down Albany and Saratoga Way. They got money and bought us generators up here. Eris, working on pipes and such. The Methodist Church has a tractor trailer full of stuff. National Guard, they've been here all along. And look at all our townspeople, our own townspeople. They've been working day and night. But you see the worst in everybody all the time.
Well, my dear, I don't see a damn thing. I see more than you. You know it's true. The store is selling generators for 3 times the price they were before the storm. And a family down the road had a generator stolen the other night. They had a small baby in the house, too.
Oh, gosh. Now I know for sure not all the lines are disconnected.
I hope that didn't fall on somebody's house.
Yeah, me too.
I think this must be the end of the world. I think every tree and electric pole in town will be down before this is over, if it ever gets over.
Now who's the pessimist?
I hope the kids and grandkids are okay. They can't get out where they are. But I gave them a good talking to about generators and carbon monoxide poisoning. But they want to do something foolish like some poor souls.
It's quite a sight, you know. I've seen it myself. Poles going down like dominoes, one pulling the other.
They say it'll be weeks before we get power back.
I'm afraid of that too. I don't know how I'm going to pay for all of it. I've been reading over my insurance policy. Boy, there's an awful lot of small print. Can't make heads or tails of that mumbo jumbo. I'll bet all of it, when this is over, you'll find paying all those years was just crazy.
Sometimes the insurance works out, but I hear what you're saying. Remember the time that poor old Theo had a leaky roof? There he was, 90 years old, fighting with this stupid insurance guy, while the insurance guy practically accused him of lying. It's a good thing I was there to boot him out of the house.
Barbara, what are you writing?
Well, I went stir crazy. That's my problem. Nobody on 2 legs to talk to for a whole week. No offense intended. I'm going to do this shit. I am going to write a poem. And it's going to be the poem of the century. It'll be all about the ice storm. And I will be famous. Yeah, the ice poet. Oh, gee, I don't know. I'm just not having any luck with this at all. what am I complaining about? It's cold. The roof leaks. The pipes are burst. The cellar's knee deep. It's dark at 4. No electricity. No food. Food in the freezer's all thawed out. There isn't any way to cook it anyway. No stove. The trouble with all of this is it just does not rhyme. Wait a minute. I think I got it. I think I do. Oh, yes, yes. It sums it all up the book. Besides that, it rhymes. In this land of ice and fun, we don't flush for number 1.
That's right, you went crazy, all right.
Let's celebrate. Celebrate. Everybody wants something?
Oh, yeah.
Now we have to bring this all up, you know.
Why?
Well, because I understand. This is what I heard. That if you drink stale booze, it makes walking tough funny. Well, that's what I heard. Everybody got some now? Yeah. Okay. Here's to us. Does anybody have any ice?
Yeah, but no, they'll stay for I don't know if you all know how much work this is, and we have a few people that we would like to thank. And first, we would like to thank our director, Mary Ann Ducharme. Is she here? Mary Ann?
Mary Ann? Did she leave? It's a bad sign.
There she is. This is our director, Mary Ann Ducharme. We also have someone else we want to thank who worked very, very hard on this and who put together this play. It was her idea. She did a phenomenal job. Carol Netto. We also want to thank our costume lady, Vicki Evans, who worked and made all these costumes for us. Vicki?
Presentations for Mary Ann Ducharme, who had no stake in this at all because she lives across the border. But anyway, she was willing, with my begging and pleading 2 years ago, to come forth and help us with the script and with the ideas, and then she wrote the play. So without Vicki, we wouldn't be standing here tonight. Vicki, Mary Ann. I mean, not Mary Ann. Vicki either. Donna?
So as a result of that, we decided to make Mary Ann an honorary citizen of Mooers.
cast and crew.
And the cast and crew also have some special awards for Carol and Vicki. Many thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just 1%. Please just stay seated because the swinging sisters who have just come from the engagements north, south, east, and west of here are ready to show you a very good performance. And right after that, we'll be serving ice cream in bowls and or cones in the hall. Okay? Thank you very much.